Have you achieved success and a high income, but still lack personal fulfillment and work-life balance? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful But Struggling podcast. Join us as Aaron, Eunicia, Joanne, and Mim share transformative insights and practical strategies just for you. Discover real stories and lessons that will elevate your personal satisfaction, professional accomplishment, and financial empowerment.
Welcome to another episode of Successful But Struggling. This is masterclass number 3. That's actually a non-masterclass, going to be led by none other than Eunicia Perrette, our wealth strategist. And today's non-masterclass is going to be all about those 3 things that keep most of us awake at night when it comes to our finances.
Aaron, you are so cute with the yikes. You caught me with that one. I love it. I am so happy that we're having this conversation. And as you're listening to this podcast, I hope that you get a ton of value because, as Aaron said, we're going to be talking about what are the things that are keeping you up at night when it comes to money. We all have our things. We all have things that we're dealing with, and some have more than others. And what we found is that with success comes not only a lot more responsibility, but also the idea behind money, the fears, the angst elevates as well. So today we're going to be talking about those 3 topics that Aaron, you're mentioning. Are you paying too much in taxes? Those 3 major questions. Question number 2, do you feel misalignment in your portfolio? And what in the world does that mean? And question number 3, are you somehow uncertain about your own exit strategy? And what are the ways that you can think about those? So think of today's session as the non-masterclass approach to talking about money. So let's go ahead and dive in. When we're thinking about the number 1 topic that keeps individuals up at night is this notion about taxes. And when it comes to taxes, oftentimes individuals know that they are paying too much, but they don't quite know how to put their finger on it. The other category of individuals is the individual or the household that on a personal basis, they pay more than 32% in their taxes, that they're in the 32% tax bracket or higher. And then there are the individuals that are paying multi-6 figures in their taxes year over year. And so clearly, as you can tell, the more we know about how much money we're paying in taxes, whether it's on a personal or business or both, the more we're aware of we've got a problem. So as you're thinking about, if you're thinking about taxes specifically, there are specific things that you too can do. First and foremost is by understanding where is the source of why is it that you're paying so much in taxes? Is the team talking? Is your broader financial team talking? Is your CPA and your financial advisor at a minimum, are they talking? When you're meeting with your CPA, what are the types of things that you're hearing from him or her on a year-over-year basis? Are you hearing fresh perspectives? And if the answer to any of those questions is no, meaning your CPA or your tax pro is not necessarily bringing you fresh ideas on how you can optimize your taxes year over year legitimately, if your financial team isn't talking, and if you just simply maybe even don't know where you're at with your taxes, but you know that you're paying a ton, we've got a problem on our hands we need to fix. So the biggest, we'll talk about how we address that later on, but Aaron, you were going to say something.
Well, what I can say is that as a physician and now as a business owner, I recognize that when we just go with what we're familiar with, oh, I've always worked with this person. I know this person. They're a friend. They're a family member. They're a whatever, fill in the blank. And what they're doing is good enough. What I recognize is with working with you, and you're so well connected to experts who not only know taxes, but the experts who know taxes for my personal circumstance, which went from W-2 earner to business owner. And what I can tell you is that through the experts that I was connected specifically because of working with you, we started getting some major returns instead of owing taxes. Huge pivot. And so it's not just get an expert. Not all experts are created equal, whether we're talking coaches or wealth strategists. But don't be afraid to rock the boat a little bit and ask some questions. And as you said, you have a very collaborative team that not just focuses on one thing, what's your wealth strategy, but also what are the other things that affect your wealth? Like who's your tax expert? And are they the right fit for you, relevant to now? Who is dealing with your trust and all those things? And that's another topic. But that integrated approach so that you're not working in a silo, you're all working together to make the best strategies for your family or for your business. Huge difference.
Thank you so much for that, Erin. That was a phenomenal example because, as you know, when we first started working together, and I appreciate you sharing that, the comment was, but I have a CPA, I have a financial advisor, and unfortunately, they weren't talking. And what we know, and you now know very well, is that it's not typical for them to be talking. And so when they're not talking, and especially if we're dealing with a successful business owner, successful W-2 individual that is bringing a huge income into the household, into the personal side, but and at the same time paying taxes and not knowing how to minimize them, it becomes a very big problem because year over year that money compounds. And whether we think of it as savings or we think of it as we're gaining more towards our bottom line, one is driving the other. If we're able to keep more, now we're able to invest more. Now our investments are going to get better. And then, of course, with that, we pivot towards actually point number two, the big question number two that a lot of people think about is this idea of, well, Eunicia, I have a portfolio. We're invested in whatever it is that we're invested in, but somehow we have questions. The portfolio that we're invested in, maybe we don't understand, or worse yet, we're not in alignment to how the money's invested. But maybe as you're listening to this, you're having not just those questions, but the questions go even deeper. You've tried to ask the questions. The problem goes deeper because you've tried to ask the questions, and the answers are probably always the same. Keep doing this because year over year, historically, the market will go up, will come down, and you're getting the same notices about what it should and should not do, but you're misaligned because maybe you love real estate. Maybe you want to invest in things that are more aligned to your industry. If you're a physician, you're probably wanting to know, how do I invest more in medical equipment, or maybe in medical designs or medical companies? Or maybe you want to do something that's totally different in an area that maybe you want to dip your toe in. But that's not exactly the kinds of discussions. Those are not the types of strategies that are being discussed by the broader financial services industry. So it's not right, wrong, or indifferent. It's a matter of how is our portfolio aligned to what we want to be doing with our money. I'll give you a perfect example. Earlier this afternoon, we met with our broader team and one of our clients, the broader financial team that's representing our client. And when we looked at specifically part of her portfolio, on the statement, it said that she is aggressive. Her risk profile was aggressive. But the actual mix of asset classes inside of that particular portfolio was, she's in her 20s, and the mix was representative of somebody that would be closer to 60. And so when we started diving
into, yikes again. That's a yikes.
That was a yikes,
totally not
for sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, it happens all the time. And when the financial experts that we were connected with and we were discussing asked the question of, do you know why this happened? The response was, I don't even know the name of the person that's on the statement. So this individual is talking to her client services representative, but the financial advisor that's on the statement is a gentleman. The financial client services representative is a woman. The individual that's on the statement, it's very clearly a male name. And she said, I don't know where this individual comes from. I don't even recognize the address. And so not only does she have questions about her portfolio, is not getting the answers, but guess what? She's in her 20s and she owns multiple businesses. So she's a very smart individual, very successful. And when it comes to her portfolio, she's looking at these numbers and she's thinking to herself, I don't have enough. I'm not going to be okay in retirement. I don't understand and I feel stupid. And how many times do we have individuals that are putting themselves on these islands of embarrassment and shame because they would want to see their money growing in a specific way, but they can't because they're constantly being put in that corner of shame by whomever it is that they're working with, particularly because it's not something that that individual services. Well, what if we were to think outside of the box? Multiple strategies can coexist inside of a person's portfolio, but we need to be creative. We need to know that we have access to those solutions.
And I love you talking about thinking outside the box, because that's one of the things I appreciate about you, where most people are thinking, oh, there's 401ks, there's Roth IRAs, there's 529 plans for kids in college. And you're like, well, that's a tiny fraction of what can be used in order to take advantage of tax strategies or whatever strategies that you want. But you're like, that's a tiny percentage. And here's how we can look at this. And so talking about relevant, and in adjusting things, one of the strategies that we worked on as I was pivoting from W-2 to business owner, not ready to fully retire from work, but retiring from one career and starting another, was you helped me consolidate, not just do a set it and forget it, which was where my retirement money had been, but actually reconfigure my retirement from my prior W-2 jobs into a strategy that was going to gain me 60% higher income when I really reached my retirement. And that, to me, that 60%, that is hard to come by, but you ran, like, I think of it as like a 3D CT scanner, right? You cut it in all different directions. Maybe everybody doesn't understand this, but not just looking at something from one view or one dimension or two dimensions, but all three dimensions, running it through time and going, oh, this is the strategy that is going to give you the most amount of gain as long as we do this, that, and the other thing, not just let these things run their course, where unfortunately, sometimes the set it and forget it. I had $90,000 in cash that we had borrowed when we purchased a new home and hadn't sold the other one, put the money back into cash, back into our 401k that we'd borrowed from. Nobody said a peep. And that money sat there in cash for 10 years. Had that money been sitting there, Unicio and her team would have been like, what are you doing? You need to take action. Get on it right now. The set it and forget it doesn't work. And then we created a portfolio that made sense for my new circumstances, which was completely different. And we continue looking at that as my husband pivots in his career, as my kids go off to college and starting their careers. All of these things keep pivoting, and having a team that is fast acting, continuing to create the portfolio that matches what's relevant today. And it may not even be the same as what it was 6 months or 12 months ago.
You're so right on that. And I'm going to go with the yikes, because I remember this discussion that we had about the $90,000 and yikes, right? What could my money have done?
Yeah, what would that have? I don't even want to think. I didn't do the math to go, okay, at a conservative investment, what would that have done? And what I know now is I can't go back and change it. And yet, as you said, there's shame. I'm going to talk about it because other successful people may not feel comfortable talking about it. And I want us to get over the shame. I want us to get over the embarrassment, over the procrastination, and say, rip that Band-Aid off. Share it with the right professional who can help you make up for some of those mistakes. And you just got to, show your cards to the right person and allow them, with full transparency, to figure out how to get you where you want to go.
A dear friend of mine once said, talking about shame specifically, she's actually a physician, which is interesting. She said, Unicia, talking to, at that point in time, her financial advisor was more uncomfortable than going to her gynecologist.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let that stew for a moment, right? Too many people, whether we're talking with heads of household, whether we're talking with the spouse that also works, whether we're talking with the business owner, too many people fall in that category of shame and embarrassment. And what I will tell you is it's something that I too struggled with, because even as a financial professional, when we were relying on an external team, trying to figure out which way was up, with the way that we were being made feel was very uncomfortable. And for us, it was very uncomfortable because we were young. We were earning a very nice income for our household. And when we were talking about specifically real estate, as you know, my husband's in real estate and we always loved real estate. We're invested in just about everything else, but real estate does have a core component in our portfolio. It is a core component in our portfolio. The fact that that money wasn't invested into the stocks, bonds, mutual funds, you name it, yada, 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 that money was not perceived as being investable. And so because while it was invested, it wasn't investable to the individuals we were working with. We felt like we were being forget about the corner of shame. It was the island of shame. Push it out. See you later. Come back when you've got more money for us to invest. And because of that, we ended up with strategies that were way too costly. Forget about the ability for us to think about long term. It was all about are we doing the right thing for today? And so it was a perpetual problem.
Yeah. Well, I think when we talk about those things, as a physician, I was used to talking to people about things that were very uncomfortable to them. To me, it was normal. It was part of my job. For you, talking with people about their investments, you're used to talking about it all the time and hearing all the stories. So it's more normalized. And yet, you also allow people to share those stories without judgment, without criticism, without comparison. And so that's such an important thing. And I would encourage you that if you're in a circumstance like it sounds like Eunice and her family was in, where you are being made to feel shame, or you're not feeling comfortable, or you're not feeling listened to, it's not a team approach, then I would encourage you, just like I would in medicine, get a second opinion. Ask around and look into the different options, because again, just like in medicine, there's more than one approach to doing things. And when you talk to one expert in the field, you may only get one opinion. So getting those second opinions and paying attention to your gut or your unease and say, what is this telling me? And then follow up, take the time to get a second opinion. And it may be a huge breakthrough for you in making some shifts in your family's wealth strategy or your business's wealth strategy that you may not even have known existed.
So true. And I really appreciate you sharing how our approach, Erin, with our clients. Obviously, you've experienced it, but most individuals do not know what it feels like to be in a conversation where they can truly be, when they know they will not be judged, when they know that there is no sales pitch, when they know that it's truly all about them. And we can talk about this maybe on another call. They've been pre-programmed to think, well, you have to have, if you're not a fiduciary, I am a fiduciary, but I don't ever talk about that, because it's not about doing the right thing for the client because the law tells us so. It's about doing the right thing for the client because that's the right thing. Making the client feel, somebody said on our podcast the other day, it's not about even the golden rule. It's about the platinum rule. It's not about making the person feel like you would want to feel. Take it a step above and realize what makes them feel special and meet them where they're at. And we follow that through and through with every single client that we talk to, because we found that without us being able to put ourselves in their shoes, everything else, it's no matter what you do, it's still going to put them in the corner of shame. And we need to pull them out of there.
Yeah. And just having experienced a wide variety of strategies that you have shared in your team, because my husband and I decided to use your services. Our whole family has benefited. I have a 20-year-old who's getting ready to go to college, has been working, and is just, I'm going to say, SWAT teaming her ability to invest. She has one-on-one sessions with the team and is doing better, so much better than I was at age 20 at investing. So it hasn't just been me and my husband's gain. I'm affecting the next generation in my family to not just make sure that they're taken care of as a legacy, but also they're understanding. They're watching the videos, they're listening, and really truly understanding, oh, this is why we're making this decision and not that decision. So powerful, because we know when you start investing well at 18, 19, 20 years old, you hit 40, 50, 60, you are in a completely different game than you were had you waited until you're 25, 30, 35 to really start investing in your future. So I completely appreciate that, and understanding that my kids are going to be in way better shape than I was, because we're choosing to get true experts that are going to help them understand how their money decisions now are going to affect their future.
Absolutely. Because instead of focusing on catching up or figuring out how are we going to get there, we're now focused on the true strategies because we have the long-term trajectory. So we can be very diverse, we can be very strategic in the options and the solutions that we take on, realizing that it's not a short-term game, which, by the way, actually brings us to question number 3 that keeps a lot of individuals up at night, is this notion of, we call it the exit strategy. And oftentimes I get the look of, exiting from what, Unicia? Most people think out of this world. And yes, that's a thing. We'll call that legacy. So if you're thinking about, okay, what happens when we leave out of this world, because I haven't met anybody that has left alive. When that happens, what do we leave to our children? Think of that as 3.1, right? That falls under the legacy. But there are a lot of individuals, and you mentioned a lot of you shared a story about retirement income, that are thinking about, what will my life look like when I retire? What will your life look like when you retire? If you're thinking about, will I be okay? Will there be enough money? If there's that fear, think of this as your 3.2. It's called retirement income. Without being able to beam forward to what the future may look like or needs to look like, come back and figure out, where are we? And constantly assessing, are we on the right path? Do we need to make changes based on income, based on business growth, based on whatever it is that you're dealing with and your sources of revenue or income? We're not going to be able to optimize what the future looks like. So then, as we're thinking about, if you're listening to this and you're a business owner, there's a third exit strategy. Think of this as 3.3, right? What is going to happen when you're thinking about selling your business? There are way too many individuals that work really hard, they build their businesses, and unfortunately, everything has a tendency to go towards the business. So we're kind of putting all of our eggs in one basket. And then, to compound the problem, when we're thinking about selling the company, exiting from this company, we're talking about valuation, we're talking about tax minimization. You notice how we're going right back to some very key topics. The topic of taxes is where most people lose sleep, especially with the higher incomes. It comes back around if we're thinking about selling a business. And it also comes back around if we're thinking from a retirement standpoint, or even from a legacy standpoint, depending on how much we leave in assets to our children. So some of those topics are a constant thread throughout this fabric of wealth that we're weaving for our individual selves, as well as for our families, or for whatever it is that we call legacy. And so, as we're thinking about those 3 major questions, am I paying too much in taxes? It keeps you up at night. You're feeling the pain. One of our clients said, Unicia, I felt the biggest pang in my stomach the first time I had to write a 6-figure check to the IRS. Are you feeling that pang in your taxes? Are you feeling like your portfolio maybe is just not aligned to who you are as an individual, to how you like to invest money? Maybe your questions aren't addressed the way that they should? Or, worst case scenario, question number 3, when you're thinking about your own exit strategy, what does that mean to you? Is that keeping you up at night? And is that making you feel like you want to run the other way? Well, guess what? In order to address each one of those questions, first and foremost, you have to step into that level of uncomfortableness. Notice I'm not talking about talk to someone that makes you feel uncomfortable. You just have to be open to say, I have some questions. And my philosophy is that no question is a stupid question unless it's not asked. Chances are, if you have a question, whether it's the top 3 that we discussed or anything else regarding money, if it's there, it's a real thing. And the moment you get it addressed and you actually have a good answer for it, you're able to actually elevate your game to the next level. So don't procrastinate. Ask for help. Make sure that if something, to Erin's point from earlier, I love that you said, listen to your gut instinct, because that's one of my mottos, right? If something doesn't feel right, don't lean into it. Again, go back to asking questions, but make sure that you say, you know what? It's good. I'm good. I had a conversation with one of our clients earlier today, and his question was, Eunicia, there are all these different investment things that are coming my way, but they're in a city that I'm moving away from. The numbers are okay. I didn't even bring them to our discussions because they're okay. They're not really in alignment with what I want to do, but it's revenue. I said, okay. Do we realize what's going to happen the moment you go into any one of those investments? We can look at the numbers, but if the numbers don't work and they're in a city that you're moving away from and you don't want to constantly go back to fix the problems in these businesses or business, and at the same time, it's not in an area that you're passionate about, not everything is a bed of roses. And it sounds like we're not starting there to begin with. So when stuff hits the fan, what do you think is going to come through your mind? All of those things that are not in alignment. So if something is not in alignment with how your money works, it's okay to pause, reassess, and say, okay, is this going to serve me the best? Or is that money better fitted somewhere else? And then when it comes to legacy, here's the thing. Do not leave it to tomorrow. The more you procrastinate, the more you push it off, the harder it's going to become. Whether you're talking about exiting from here and the legacy that you leave your children, or maybe a not-for-profit or something you care about, the exit from a business, and or the exit because you're going to be retiring. The more you wait, the costlier it becomes. And yes, we can always look at the numbers forwards and backwards and figure out strategies and whatnot. But the reality is that some of those strategies are much better implemented earlier on rather than later on in the process. So obviously, you've got our contact information. If we can be of any support, feel free to just go to our website, www.excelstra.com, excelstra.com, and book a call. We would love to take your questions. We would love to figure out, I don't know if we are the right fit for you, but at a minimum, let's get you on the path to where you have some tangible questions that maybe you can ask your existing team and figure out why is it that you've come so far to only come so far versus you've come so far and you have the opportunity of going much further if you take the right steps for the next steps.
Love that, Eunicia. And with that, stay tuned. Don't forget to head to excelstra.com to find out more about the strategies that might be possible for you for your wealth and your future legacy. And stay tuned for the next episode of Successful But Struggling. We'll see you there.
Don't miss out on more strategies that will elevate you to new heights. Visit successfulbutstruggling.com now, where you'll discover exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with each of us individually. There you can dive deeper into how you, too, can take your personal and professional game to the next level. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Number 1, connect with us on the website. And number 2, tune in to the next episode.